What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Surf and Sales podcast. For a split second there, I didn't know if we'd get it there today because Richard could not find the record button. There's a lot of jokes there. Welcome once again to the Surf and Sales podcast. I'm Scott Leese, one of your co-hosts and co-founder of the Surf and Sales Summit. Got a couple tickets left. Check it out at surfandsales.com. Richard, congrats on finding the record button. We are here.
That's good. And, the good news is I found the mute button too. So I made sure
It's a bi-directional button. That's what you're talking about.
Pretty much. Needs to be anyway.
I'm super excited. I'm super excited for this conversation because, Richard, as you have been evangelizing now as well, we're not talking about go-to-market anymore. We're talking about go-to-network. I was very happy to see you talking about this. This was unplanned. You talking about this.
Correct. When did I talk about it?
Everyone's talking about it.
No, you were on somebody else's podcast and you talked about it.
You listen to another podcast. You don't listen to podcasts.
No, well, to be fair, I didn't listen to the podcast. I saw the post promoting the podcast.
Gotcha.
Anyway, we're going to be talking to the founder and CEO of a company called ReferIn, which is in this go-to-network, referral selling, co-selling, near-bound, network-led growth, whatever you want to call it. Kind of competing terminology these days. His name is Joel Rodriguez. We're going to bring him onto the show in just a second. But first, Richard's going to introduce HubSpot and tell us what they're up to.
Yeah, thank you to HubSpot and the HubSpot Podcast Network. As we move into this AI world, right, which I'm sure will be a topic at their big inbound conference this fall. If you don't know about ChatSpot or Content Assistant that are baked into the HubSpot CRM, it'll help you whip up reports. It'll get copy inspiration. It'll pull summaries for you, all this kind of stuff that you're trying to do faster. And we really appreciate how they're trying to approach this in the understanding that we have a lot of workflow. We've gotten more efficient to a certain degree with CRMs. However, even that needs some help. And that's where their stuff on the AI side comes in. So please check out HubSpot.com and check out their AI platforms and performance reports. So, Scott, I will turn it back to you to reintroduce our good friend, Joel.
Yeah, once again, Joel Rodriguez, the CEO and founder of ReferIn. Welcome to the show, Joel.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, tell everybody real quick, what is ReferIn and what are you working on?
Yeah, ReferIn is a platform that helps companies leverage their networks to get more meetings with buyers. So we help companies get more warm introductions and so that they can sell their product and enable them to increase their pipeline. Been working on this for a couple years now, about 5 years now. So I've been deep in the space and just been awesome to see how this movement of people leveraging their network and go-to-network has been gaining momentum as we've seen the trend of cold outreach and the traditional means of getting meetings continue to decline. So that's a quick overview.
Yeah, that's great. But interesting thing here, Richard, you paid attention, is Joel's been working on this for 5 years. So I would say that he is 3.5 to 4 years earlier than me. And so what I want to know is what did you see or feel that made you go, wait a second, I can see where this is going if we keep doing what we're doing, and that's not going to work. There's got to be a better way. What was it? Because you tipped off on it way before I was.
Great question. I was leading sales teams. So before doing ReferIn, I led 4 sales teams in New York. They were marketing tech sales teams. And from a number of go-to-market positions from C all the way to B, C round companies. So I saw the whole go-to-market motion. And the biggest problem that I had as a sales leader was always getting more meetings. It was always generating pipeline. And sales is an iterative process fundamentally. So it's always trying to find the point that is limiting and iterate on that point. And the solution was, at the time, was hire another SDR. And now it's still almost hire another SDR because fundamentally we can only depend on marketing for so many leads. And then right now, the main means of getting to market is through cold outreach. So that hasn't changed, shockingly. I mean, you would think that, back then it was over 50% of meetings easily were through email. Now it's pretty close to that. Maybe there's a few other channels that are creeping in, but it's still largely cold. So when I was running a team at my last company, we had to switch markets. So we were a seed stage company. It was kind of do or die. We were going after retail e-commerce, had to go and shift to technology companies. And I needed to generate a new pipeline, a bunch of meetings. And the only way that I could do that was leverage my network. I was able to generate like 25 meetings in a month. And it was all through my network. And it was like a light bulb went off. And it was like, wait a second. If this is how we get meetings, why can't we get the whole sales team to do this? And that was the problem I wanted to solve. It's like, how do we get sales teams to take advantage of not only their network, but the company's network, and now effectively manage a process so we can take advantage of the best way to get in touch with customers, which is through networks or through warm introduction.
Is the first real unlock here the size of your network? And if so, isn't that all the more reason that people should be actively building up their network? I mean, shouldn't it be like a daily KPI the same way leaders are like, how many cold calls did you make today? Shouldn't it be like, how many new connections did you make today?
See, it's also a very digital way or new age way of thinking about that conversation. Most of my network is built, through in-person relationships or working at jobs or through meetups and stuff like that. It's interesting how we think about networks as the number of connections on LinkedIn. But I'll step back and say I think you have a great point. Building your network is going to be hugely important for everybody. And even building a following on these social platforms and becoming an expert in your space that you're selling to and reaching your customers by actually helping them and serving them is what you should be thinking about. So fundamentally, yes, you want to be networking, but I think it's not a requirement to have the biggest network. I think because what we can do, leveraging technology, is take advantage of the network of the whole sales team and a whole company, all the executives, the investors, the advisors. So it's a team effort. So I think what's happening is you're going to see this go-to-network movement is right now, it's a game of every man for themselves. Everyone has their own, every salesperson, AE, SDR has their own LinkedIn network, and their choice of how to use that network or get to market is only through that small network. I think what we'll see is platforms come online that let SDRs and AEs take advantage of broader network, whether that's the network of the company, investors, advisors, customers, partners, communities, right? There's going to be more of a connectivity and more of an opportunity to go beyond your network and execute on warm introductions. And that's going to be later.
Zuckerberg. I'm listening to Zuckerberg as he was in his first pitch to the VCs back in the day of the connections of community. So he love it. I have a question though. As soon as Scott asked that question about leveraging the network or growing your network, I often wonder if the first place is the mindset of the rep. So often I think some reps are very comfortable asking for that introduction or who do you know? Others aren't. And I think they aren't because they don't know what to say or how to say it. There's no playbook, quote unquote, written. What is that message? Right. So, as you think about this and as you build Refer In, what are some of those first messages I could send to someone, like Joel, you and I have just really met today. We met LinkedIn and stuff, but how would I approach, and granted, it's your business. Let's assume you didn't have Refer In. How do I approach a guy like Joel, like Matt? Inbound is coming up for HubSpot. I meet someone at their conference. How do I then go and try to leverage that, through some additional referrals?
Yeah. Great question. I'll get back to messaging. Take a step back. And what you said in the beginning is a lot of reps don't know how to take advantage of their network or take advantage of the complex process of asking for an introduction. And that couldn't be more true. What I've seen in my sales teams is I was able to take advantage of my network because I was a former CEO and sales leader. And that's a fundamental part of my job. But if you look at normal, like the average AE or SDR, they are not comfortable reaching out to their network, asking a favor of someone in their network that is not expecting it, who probably doesn't know their product, to make an introduction to someone that person probably doesn't know what. That's the motion we're talking about, right? And that has to change, and it changes, right? But how do you enable this, long tail of so there's going to be one or two reps that are good at this. They have big networks. They are comfortable asking those networks for introductions. It's like a couple on each sales team and the sales leader. And then what we want to empower though is the rest. Those people you're asking the question about, which is I'm not comfortable asking my network, or I don't have a big network.
So how do we do it? Why do you get elbow?
HubSpot.
Yeah, get to the.
Yeah. So the point is, one, you have to identify who you want to be asking. So who's the target? You have to be specific. You can't just say, I want to get in touch with someone in sales in HubSpot, right? The first part is identifying the buyer or the person that you want to get a warm introduction to, right? So that's step number one. That requires now clicking a lot of times on LinkedIn. And again, we'll get easier with technology. But once you identify that person, then it's about empowering that the middleman or the referrer, as we call them, to make that introduction in the most easy manner possible, and to say no in the most easy manner possible. And the first email that usually goes something like this: I'm looking, something personalized. I'm looking to get in touch with HubSpot. Here's the reasons. Here's how I can help them. And mentioning the name of the specific person and why you want to get in touch with that specific person, how you help them. And then asking the question, would you mind making an introduction? The process then goes back to the AE or SDR with a yes or no. 4 to 5 times it's a no because they don't know the person well. Then it goes, if it's a yes, then an email has to go back to the middleman with a forwardable message that then gets sent to the target, which is the buyer, whoever we're trying to get in touch with HubSpot, who then responds to the middleman, right? Which then puts them in touch. That's drop off.
Yeah,
So what happening?
My theory of that is like exhausting for people.
Well, it's so overwhelming, and so it's so hard to actually not. It's so more high intensive to do this because. Oh, there.
But Scott, is it more exhausting than making 50 phone calls and getting no one to pick up?
No, and that's what people need to realize.
Exactly. But it does take time because you have to put in the time. Because the other thing is when you said, I want to get in touch with HubSpot and I see my friend as a connection to HubSpot, well, you need 4 or 5 friends that are connected to HubSpot before you're going to get that introduction for sure.
That's right. There's people.
And you know what? That means you have to.
People screw up that you need to do it at scale.
Yeah.
You can't just have one person.
Absolutely right.
You have to ask a bunch of people. Yeah.
Well,
it's totally right. So now you're asking your rep to not only ask for one introduction, but to ask for 4. So all that time putting together has to be like a sales process, right? Has to be a process. This is a sales process. So what we're going to see is that we're making that one-off, I need a warm introduction to an account. How can we systematize it, right? Because sales is fundamentally about creating repeatable processes. And it's crazy that the number one way to get in touch with customers, I was in a bad situation at Rebel. I needed to build a pipeline out of nowhere. I went to my number one way, my network of getting in touch with people, right? But the number one way, no sales team today has a systemized process to create warm introductions. What they do is they hope that their reps are using their networks and figuring out this complex process on their own and asking multiple times, hoping to get introductions. And right now, that's why we're seeing that warm introduction, but an ocean of opportunity.
Yeah.
And that opportunity is systemizing the process and creating a way for teams to take advantage of their company's network.
Yeah, and that's the kind of like momentum and hype, if you will, that you're starting to see bubble up. You're seeing lots of companies pop up like yours to try to solve this problem. You're seeing practitioners think about this thing as they know that their results are not where they need to be right now. You're seeing consultants and advisors and creators who are talking about this kind of stuff. You're seeing big, huge companies have people come to their conferences and speak about this kind of thing. There's one kind of interesting objection that I heard the other day. So I want to get your take on it. Somebody said to me essentially, well, isn't AI just going to kill off all prospecting? So like you have this small window in time where you can make this referral-led motion work, but actually like in a year or two, it'll be pointless anyways. I'm curious what your take is, in a response to that particular individual who asked me something like that.
No, it's a great question. I love the AI for what I'm trying to do, which is help sales teams create signal from the messy noise of a crowded inbox or cold emails. Just think about it. What's happening is we went from the idea of predictable revenue now probably 10 to 16 years, over 10 years ago, right? Where we realized that if we send emails to executives, some percentage of them are going to respond. And then as Scott has eloquently put many, many times, this is just kind of continue this trend hyperbolically almost at this point. Now we have more sales teams selling more products, using more sales tech solutions that send more emails at scale. So the next piece of that is now we have robots sending more emails at scale that are even more, it's going to be increase the number of emails in the executive inbox exponentially. But then you also have the experience of the executive, right? Who has to, if they don't know the name of the person that they're talking to, has to assume it's a robot. Like they're emailing back, whoever they're emailing back forward, the default will say
it's an AI. Yeah.
Right. So what matters? Relationships, build trusted relationships. And you're not going to respond to anyone in your inbox unless you know them or were introduced to them. And all the algorithms that, Gmail, Outlook, or whatever, who are filtering these, they're going to have to filter all these AI messages, are going to put the humans up top, the people that you're introduced to. So fundamentally, we're going to a game where we need to create more signal. And the best signal is a trusted introduction. So AI is great because I think it's going to be even more important to build trust with your customers and with your, and doing that is going to be through your network or go to network or go to community or whatever we're calling this.
Yeah, whatever we want to call it.
Whatever you want to call it. Yeah.
Go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, I'm curious to understand, so are you thinking that AI won't be able to do this? I mean, isn't the algorithm, we're not there yet, but in a year, won't the algorithm figure it out? Won't the algorithm be able to go and theoretically look at my inbox? How many communications have I had with Scott Leese? Okay. And I put into the algorithm, I want to talk to this person. I think they're, who in my inbox, because I've got, 10 years of emails in my inbox, would be the best person to ask for a referral for Scott Leese, right? Or from Scott to someone, right? Won't AI see that and then craft the message and send it out? And we're not there yet, right? Like right now, it's all about getting better at the prompting, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm curious to where you think that happens.
I think that happens through platforms like referral. I think the fundamental thing that you need to have a platform that will map. You need data, right? And you need that data is also your targets combined with your network data. And that's essentially the motion. What you're saying is creating an agent that will make that process as easy and seamless as possible. And yes, that's going to involve AI is fundamentally what we're doing at referral. We have a bigger vision of that, which is not only asking for one introduction to and using only one source of data. We want to use a lot of sources of data, your inbox, LinkedIn, maybe your social networks, right? Your graphs, right? And then we want to go after not one company, but all the companies in your book and all the companies in in the target list of a company. And now you have a complex problem, right? You have to have the best way for a company to systematically go after their targets through a coordinated approach. And AI will be a fundamental part of helping that. And part of it will be crafting messages, part of it will be optimizing timing and how that, and connecting and how that flow works as well.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because, also thinking, and I don't know if this is in your platform or not, but part of it's like, okay, I've got 10 years of emails in my inbox, right? I have a regular newsletter that goes out, right? I've got a strong email set up around it, so I get good open rates and all those kind of things. Part of this is also, to your point, going back to that relationship. How do I nurture my relationship with all these people in my inbox? How do I nurture Joel, right? 3 weeks from now, 3 months from now, and just like, hey, Joel, don't know what you're up to. Just thought I'd say, hey, here's some stuff I'm working on.
I mean, you could do that without the here's some stuff I'm working on.
But my point being is, I wanted to go back through the last 3 years of my emails and just send that message out to help to start warm that up.
Yes.
So that in 2 or 3 months, I could come back to Joel.
Yeah. So here's what you should be thinking here. How can I add value to my network? Right. And we're just thinking about email right now. You could do that. I mean, these platforms are set up to be doing this, right? LinkedIn is set up to give you short sound bites to a large audience, which is your network, where you have an opportunity to essentially take this stage. And it's like, Davis, if you had 5 minutes to take a stage, Jake Dunlap, I'll shout out, makes this reference, but it's like you have an audience of your followers or the people in your newsletter, right? And you have a minute of their time on. It's essentially like broadcasting on stage at a conference to all your customers, if those followers are your customers, or all your referrers, if those are people that could help you. So it's like, how do you add value to your network is how I think about it. And that's what we should think about.
Right. So it's how do we get better at our drip campaign as an individual, not from the marketing perspective, and not from a perspective.
Correct. And I think what the drip campaign is, the LinkedIn post. It's a short LinkedIn post, right?
Right.
Because it's designed to be a drip campaign of you posting one or a couple of times a week. And you'll see, as Scott knows, that's how you build a follower account. That's how you build a reputation. And because you added value, you become an expert. And then because you're an expert, people trust you, right? And they trust you as buyers, and they trust you as people that are referring you because they know you're someone that is, worthy of referring. So I think that's how you do it.
I'm going to ask one more selfish question for me and after Scott.
Is that helpful?
I don't know. Have you, because I agree with you about all this network stuff. Have you found or heard, or do you guys as a service go in, connect with my LinkedIn and tell me, here are the 3,000 people of my 50,000 who never, ever engage with me so I can get rid of them? If you make that tool, I will be your biggest customer.
It's a good question. I think that's the LinkedIn feature that they should make or have. At least I know they have it on Instagram, which you can look at who the people that you least interact with. I don't know if LinkedIn's far behind that. I haven't seen the feature of LinkedIn, but maybe it exists. But yeah, that's a LinkedIn thing because they have the data. And we know that LinkedIn's relatively stingy about their APIs and letting other people have their data. So it's a hard thing for other companies to do.
It would be a useful feature if somebody could.
Yeah. But let's call you that, right? I can tell you. So let's turn us here. Yeah, let's talk about the strength of your connections, right? Let's figure out who's most important in your network, that the top 500 people that are most likely to help you with an introduction. And that's something that referring can help you with. Because
that's probably a smart way to look at it too. That
right. So we can look at your inbox.
Yeah.
We can look at your inbox and see who you interacted with most. We can look at your LinkedIn and cross-reference that with other social platforms to see, and your inbox to see who are you most connected to, right? So there's an algorithm that's we're able to create that can give you a score, right, of who's most likely to help you. And that's we're getting there. So we started at like no network, right? And then we started building these smaller networks. And now we're at the point of like, so we're at the point now where people have 2,000 person network is the average LTV on like a sales team, right? 1,500 to 2,000. So in that network, there's only going to be a small amount of people that you're willing to ask for an introduction. But because there's only a small amount of opportunities for introductions, it's okay to not really find the strength of people's network, because it's only 100 people you have to go through. Or for most people, not you. You would really benefit from strength of network, which is where we're going. Everyone has a network of thousands of people.
I got in.
We need it. Yeah, go.
All right, good. I agree with you. So you'll get long-winded, and so I have to interrupt.
Sorry. No, thank you.
But that also means you're passionate about it, which is the plus side of this. Like I'm not.
I appreciate it.
Not a criticism. It means you're really passionate and knowledgeable. So I'm glad to hear those things. But I have to interrupt because we're at that mid-roll place where I've got to mention our good friend, Mr. Mark Roberge, who's also on the HubSpot podcast network. If you didn't know, Mr. Roberge was a founding CRO at HubSpot. He's a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School, where Scott's only talked once or twice to some students from ASU. So it's a big difference. And, he has his own podcast called The Science of Scaling, where he brings in very, very specific thought leaders and strategists to talk about the secrets, the strategies, and the tactics of scaling company growth. So if you haven't checked out the Science of Scaling podcast hosted by Mark Roberge, we would love to recommend it. So, Scott, now that you're back on camera.
Richard, are you trying to suggest that ASU is somehow inferior to Harvard?
Look, all I know is that when I went to U of A, literally our president said we wanted to be the Harvard of the West.
The Harvard of the Southwest.
That's what he said. No, he said the West. He went, he had big, grand visions. But, that never quite,
So think about where we are right now, Joel, with this process. Where will this be 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Fast forward in time, like how is this going to evolve? Because you were ahead of the curve and seeing this as a need. So now I make the assumption that like you're still seeing around turn 3 while the rest of us are rounding turn 1. Where will we be? Where will we be with this process? Not stuff you have built right now. Some of it is maybe not even on your roadmap, but like, where are we headed with this?
Sure. I think it's pretty, to me, it's pretty obvious. This is going to be a channel. Like it has to be thought of as like, there's a cold emails channel and there's or cold channel and a warm channel. And that warm channel is going to be systematized and optimized much like the cold channel is. What happened is it's just much more complicated. So it hasn't been optimized and systematized yet. So we're going to think of, where do you get your lead? Well, we get 50% through cold emails. We get 20% through marketing. We get, 10% through social. And now we get a 10% through a channel that is warm introductions. So now we start thinking of it like a marketer might think about it, or like a salesperson might think about it. It becomes a funnel, just like everything in sales. It becomes an optimizable process, because right now it is an ad hoc process that individuals do. It will become an optimized process that teams do. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does.
It has to evolve that way. There's no other way for it to evolve, right? We have to get more systematized and start treating it like a sales process, like we treat everything else.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing too is that this I can't remember who it was, but there was a company that did this inside of Salesforce, like they were native in, and it connected all your LinkedIn connections, all your email connections, all those from your company so that you could see who was connected at these places, so you could try to prompt that message. They played the data game, right? Like they played the, you remember who it is, Scott, you might remember. They played the data game of like, let us be your CRM data. They didn't, and they sort of poo-pooed the referral piece.
Is there related IQ maybe?
No, it was before
the company related IQ.
No, they I want to say it was like in something anyway, and they ran like a call center. Like if you didn't make it within 3 weeks, you were gone. Scott, this is back in our leap fish days, right? Those leap fish, and yeah, people don't go Google that. But the big difference I see too, like that I saw was back then, the sales reps, 10 years ago, we were like, well, wait a minute, why would I let you have access to all my LinkedIn contacts? Why would I give this third-party company that piece, right, that I built all this time having? Why would I give you my email inbox? Why would I give you all these things? And I think, through the advent of social, right, we've given up so much privacy concern, particularly at a different generation. So I think that's probably a big catalyst for how you're able to do this. That's my hypothesis anyway. So, but do you run into that? The reason I'm asking into that, do you run into the like, wait a minute, I got to give you all my contacts?
Yeah. So that's one of the concerns. But what we did with referring, at least, is focused on the people that are already incentivized to help you make warm introductions. Because think about it, the people with the best networks are going to be executives, investors, advisors, and the sales team, right? And sales leaders. And they are so, like, executives have equity in the company, investors are invested, and they say, I have a great network. Advisors are literally brought in to make introductions for you. The sales leaders are most incentivized to get bonuses, and so in the sales team, and they have connections in the network from being in sales in those industries, right? And all the sales team is willing to give their network because the sales leader says, give your networks.
And that was part of the problem.
What we have
didn't want to do that. The leaders they weren't comfortable with it. They didn't want to send the message. They felt like they were being cheesy and cheap. Like that was a big piece of it. And, this is 2011 and 12. So I think it's changed a lot, which I'm glad for. Like I'm not opposed to it. So,
right. There's two fundamental shifts that we could change. Is like, one is, with the use of technology, when you're sharing your network, you don't have to share your whole network. Technology can figure out the 5% of your network that is relevant to the sales team that you're helping.
That's what I was asking earlier. Yes, that's the part I want to know.
That's what referring does. What we do is we find the most relevant connections in your network. If you're an investor or advisor, the ones that you'd want to show the sales team because you invested in the company, because you believe their solution helps customers. So then the second thing is, you said the sales leader didn't want to do it because it's easy. Well, the sales leader, or whoever's making these introductions, better believe that their product can service customers, the right people.
This wasn't those people. This wasn't those people. This was people like the CTO and the CMO who, they felt dirty trying to do that, right? Like that mindset we talked about earlier. But anyway, I think we're at a different spot now, and I'm glad to know that it's out there. Glad to know Refer-In exists to help people figure it out. We got to move to our wrap, which really is when we turn it over to you, Joel, and we let you ask a question of us. How can we be of help to you? What would you like to ask us?
No, I really appreciate it. I think this has been a great conversation, guys. I'd love to continue this conversation and keep on figuring out how we could evangelize this idea of go to network, or leveraging companies' networks to help them get more warm introductions to prospects, and please move away from this idea of mass cold emailing and contacting on every social channel, every executive with every AI bot using, all this technology to.
Yeah, but what's your question? Come on. What's your question?
I need a question. Okay. So what I've been thinking about something, we can talk about AI. But yeah, how does AI fundamentally change the sales tech landscape? And who's the winners and who's the losers?
Well,
I like the winner and loser angle. Let's focus on the winner and loser, right?
I like that.
I don't know if you.
I think the winners, there are going to be different stages of the winners, right? There's going to be people at the top of the funnel, right? There's going to be people in the middle of the funnel and people at the end of the funnel. And that's the people who win will be the ones who talk to their customers and prospects about how they want to use AI, how they're even perceiving AI. So in my mind, I want to have a conversation with my customers, even though, I do sales training. I'll be like, what are you concerned about with AI? What do you think about? How do you think it's approaching the sales world? Which, to your point, Joel, goes back to how do I build a trusted relationship, right?
Yep.
And then if I'm an AI tool that is going to help someone by using AI, right? Like maybe I sell to construction sites or something like that, right? And I've got an AI tool to help them. Well, I need to understand from my customers, how do they even see AI? Do they like it? Are they afraid of it? What's their comfort level of starting to replace something? And so I think the ones who figure that out will attract the early adopters, right? Which will then help them get, the next round, and then the laggards, and they'll cross the chasm. The chasm thing still exists, right? I think those are going to be the ones who are the winners, the ones who talk to their prospects and customers and can iterate quickly rather than letting the founder say, this is the problem we're going to solve, right? And just letting them drive the product alone.
That's a good answer.
I think that the losers will be the ones who automate humanity out of all of the business processes that exist.
Mm.
Yep.
I think the winners will be people who find ways to re-inject humanity into how we conduct business. So in many ways, I see us starting from scratch, building up all this fancy stuff that ultimately basically tries to destroy us. And we have to go all the way back to the beginning. And going back to the beginning is such a unique experience that it starts working again.
I love that. And it's so interesting that I love that. And both your answers involve building trust with the customer implicitly, right?
Yes. And the evolution of it is how we build that trust.
Right. Yeah, I see this all the time in my training, is that our job is to get people to fall in trust with us, not to fall in love with us. Right. That's like, there's a chapter of that in my book coming out specifically. But that's really, how I see it. Like, I don't need someone to love me or like me. I need them to trust me. If they trust me, then the love and the like could come. But even then, it doesn't mean it's true love, right? I got a lot of rejected prospects who went with somebody else, or they made a different decision and didn't do anything, but I know they trust me. They know I didn't bullshit them along the way. It's the karma. Maybe that's the right one. The winners will be the ones who understand how karma works in the humanity of sale. There you go, Scott.
There you go.
I'm thinking that's good. Oh, tell everybody.
I was going to smoke a bowl on that one and think about it tonight.
I will. Actually, not a bad idea. Joel, tell everybody how they can get in touch with you and follow up.
Hey, everybody. Yes, please go to referring.com and look at demo. I'm happy to talk to you more about how we can use the power of relationships to get you more warm introductions and build pipeline.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And we'll see you next time on the Starts and Sales podcast.
Good to hang out with you, Joel.
Thanks, everybody.